welcome back to RAILstuff. It's a different location today because we're doing something a little bit different. Of course, the £100 layout work does continue, and there has been good progress on that side, and hopefully either later on this week or certainly by next week we'll have an update on how things are progressing there, because we are now rapidly heading towards October, which means that time is running out. But I've got a far more pressing thing to talk about today, and that is ballast. Some of you may have seen a video I made last year, I reckon now, that was about trying to solve the ballast issue when it comes to finding the right scale, the right grade for the different gauges of a railway that we model. And I really came out of it feeling even more confused than I went in. And that's because I really don't have a clue what I'm talking about, and I really should leave it to the professionals. And that's the good news. There are now some professionals in the game. I am, of course, talking about these guys, True to Scale. True to Scale is part of a company based in Staffordshire, yay, called Specialist Aggregates. And Specialist Aggregates has made special aggregate products, funnily enough, for decades. Some of them end up on film and TV set studios. Some of them end up in, I don't know, shopping centres in the fancy plant displays that have, you know, coloured gravel around them and things like that. They also do a load of stuff for real-world heritage railways, providing coal and aggregate products that is correct to the period of that heritage railway. And the guy who runs it, Steve, is a bit of a railway fan, and he recognised the problem that there is in model railway ballast, in that it is not true to scale. Yeah, how many times have you guys got fed up with having to choose between fine, medium and coarse? Or how many people have said, actually, you should use N gauge for double O, you should use double O for O, and it all gets way too confusing. Well, True to Scale have set about fixing that problem. The reason I'm making this video, by the way, is number one, I think it's a great product and it's a great brand. And number two, because RAILstuff is now stocking True to Scale products. So I thought we'd have a look at them ourselves. So the great thing as well is that the True to Scale range that RAILstuff has taken in is in N gauge, TT and double O as well. So nice to actually start catering towards TT a little bit more. And when you get an N gauge ballast, it is an N gauge ballast. Steve spent many years working in aggregates and even in quarries and things before he moved into Specialist Aggregates, and he has supplied many railway products full scale over time. So for him it was a case of, okay, how do I now take that, set it to the correct scale, and then crush and grade the product to the correct scale? And that's right, that means that they are using real aggregate products and crushing them and grading them to the correct scale. So you are actually using just miniature versions of the ballast that is being used on real railways. So I want to prepare this little card here. It's not card. This board. Board is the word I was looking for. That will have an example of N, TT and double O ballast on it, so that it shows people can actually see it outside of the packet and see what it looks like attached to some track. So the guys at True to Scale were kind enough to stick in some samples for me in the rather large delivery that arrived recently of their products. So we're going to have a dig through and see what we've got in here. Now, the other good news is that there's quite an excess of sample packs here, and I'm not going to need them all. So with agreement from True to Scale, we're actually going to give some of these away to people that place orders online. I'll let you know when we're doing that. Check out our socials, and you know, I'll make sure that you know when that offer is on. This is a tiny bag of the light grey 00 track ballast. The products that I'll sell will be in 500 gram and 1 kilogram bags. I think I'm right in saying it's only the 00 that I'm doing in the 1 kilogram. Everything else is just the 500 gram. It just makes more sense. But either way, there are some 1 kilogram bags, I think, of the 00. That there is a bag of 00 ballast, and that is the finest 00 ballast I have ever seen. That is the kind of size that you normally see N gauge ballast. So it's fascinating to see what is actually the correct True to Scale version. So let's put that one to one side. That is 00 light grey, and there's a few of those there, so let's move those to one side. We also have wagon loads. This is a wagon load of mainline coal in 00, and look at that, it is beautiful. And that is actual coal. So if it gets cold, you can always burn it, I suppose. Then they have universal ground cover products as well, and there's some fascinating stuff. This one is my personal favourite. That is a universal Barry Stockyard ground cover. So universal as in it can be used on any gauge. Really, it's very fine. You can see the metallic shavings in there as well as the actual aggregate product in there. That is fantastic. Big fan of the ground coverings. There are sort of earthy ground coverings as well. You also get ballast in dark grey. This is one of the universal ground covers, so it's quite earthy looking. I know Richard at New Junction has used that recently on, I think, around the porter cabin area. Go check out his latest videos to find out. There's quite a bit of universal ground cover in here. There's a universal base cover as well. There's a standard grey 00. So you can see it's just slightly darker than the light grey. And if you compare it to the dark grey, then again, there's a significant difference there. I'm just going to have a dig through, because one thing I didn't check was whether the sample pack included any N or TT. Well, good news. I've got a TT in dark grey. What about N? Have we got any N in here? Please let there be some samples in N. You know when you think to yourself, I really should have checked this before I hit record. If not, then it might be a trip up to the unit. Lanarkshire red granite in 00. Got some more standard grey. Got some more TT. I don't think there's any N in here. I can now confirm that no, there is no N gauge in there. So I'd best nip up to the unit, I guess, and see if I can pick up some N gauge for us to use for this. But before I do that, I need to take this box with me anyway. This, just to introduce you, is a new range of products, most of which have been made in conjunction with New Junction. Too many junctions in that. Some are also RAILstuff own products, but for example, We have laser cut products made by Richard at New Junction. So we've got security fencing with both large gates and small gates. We've got the Thirsk waiting room, which Richard did a video on. We've got rural gates. We've got rural fencing. There's all sorts of stuff in here as well, but plenty of it, as you can see. And this will all be making its debut at the Staffordshire show this weekend, and then it will be at Getz in a couple of weeks as well. There's and then we move on to the 3D printed stuff. So again, this is Richard's work, a platform detail starter kit. This is all the stuff that he's using on his own platform. So that includes a help point, a ticket machine, 2 wheelchair ramps, and some poster and sign holders. And then there's the RAILstuff 3D printed stuff. Like we've got 3D printed skips that I've made in 00 at the moment. I'm going to try in different scales as well. We've got pallets, oil drums if I can get one out. Which they're nice and simple, all need painting up, of course. We've got traffic cones as well, so lots of different things coming, and most of these will be making their debut at the Stafford show this weekend, and then they'll be at Getz as well, but obviously always available to shop at rail-stuff.com. Right, I best nip up to the unit and get this N-gauge ballast. So it took me a while, but I have now collected the correct ballast. So we've got the TT, the 00, and we've got some N as well. So before we actually start applying it to some tracks, let's just take a look at the difference between them side by side. So in fact, let me just get a piece of white paper so that we can see it nice and clearly. A bit of white card will do, actually. Although the card's so thin, it might as well be paper. So let's take a look and we'll go through the scales. We'll start off with N. So with N, I've got a bag of the standard grey here. Let's just tear the top. And these are nice resealable bags as well. So this is N-gauge, and if we're talking about how fine something is, then what can I compare that to? It's finer than granulated sugar. It's like very fine sand, but when it's actually on the piece of card there, it looks fantastic. The different colours that you've got in there are absolutely superb. With the TT, I've got some dark grey here. I would imagine our most popular colours are going to be the greys, so the light grey, standard grey, and the dark grey. But there are some other great options, things like the Lanarkshire red granites and the brown greys, and there's a pink grey as well. I don't know if we've got any of that to hand yet. The pink grey. So there's lots of different options in terms of what you can use. Let's take a look at this TT ballast. Let's put that down there. And when you look at it, the difference is subtle. But actually, when you look at the difference between N and TT track, then the difference is fairly subtle as well. So it kind of feels about right. And again, it feels sandy in terms of you know, it's feel to the touch. And when I say sandy, this is a person with no knowledge of aggregates and grades and all that kind of stuff talking. So this is a layperson to a layperson. I'm sure Steve from Specialist Aggregates, if he saw this, would be thinking, oh my word, guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But most of us don't, right? So, hey, I just represent you guys. So let's have a look at the 00, and I can certainly feel that it's more coarse. This is in the light grey. And the interesting thing is it still has some very fine pieces in there, but it has some much more coarse pieces as well. And that you can see, maybe not on camera, but I can see, you know, with my eyes live as such, the difference between the N, the TT and the 00. But what's interesting is this 00 is probably about the kind of scale that a lot of us buy N gauge ballast at the moment. And that's why a lot of people end up using N gauge ballast for 00 and so on, so forth. Let's have a look what it looks like with some track. But of course, before we do that, I need to fix the track down in place. So give me a few moments whilst I do that. Right, well, with those fixed down as much as they need to be, it's time to get on with it. Now, of course, a lot of people will know exactly how to lay down ballast. A lot of people will have their own way of doing it, and maybe some of the ways that I do it will be slightly different. But obviously this is not on a layout, so I don't have to be quite as precise as I might have to elsewhere. So we've got the N, the TT and the 00, and I will then use, I've got some paint brushes here that help me brush the ballast level, but look, this is not designed to be exhibition ready, kind of perfect layout ballasting. This is just a bit rough and ready so that we've got you know, an example of what the ballast is like for customers to see. So I'm just starting off by sprinkling a load on, and then we'll start to brush off from there. But we are starting with the N gauge on this side here. Now, fully aware that I've put way too much on there. But what I then first start with is by brushing off through the center, and I use a nice soft tipped brush for this. So this one is actually this is a Revel number 10 brush. You can see there that it is very, very soft bristled brush. Hopefully I'm using the correct terminology there. But you can see it's doing a nice job of just settling the ballast down off the sleepers and into the gaps. One of the other tips that I've picked up along the way, and I can't remember where I first got this from, it might be an Everard junction thing, might be a new junction thing, some kind of junction anyway, is to tap the rails with the brush handle as well. It tends to be better when you get up to like the 00, just for knocking the ballast off of the sides. Now, I will then start to brush here as well, because obviously we want a nicely defined shoulder for this particular application. Yeah, in other applications that may not matter, and you probably want to blend it into your scenery somewhat. But for this, I want it to look nice and neat down the sides. So any excess, I'm just going to brush off the side of the board for now. I can then collect the excess back up at some point. Now, just by hand, I'm going to press in the shoulder, but I probably need to just gently brush off of the edge of the sleepers here as well. Of course, at the side of the rails, it doesn't matter if you do get a bit of a hefty shoulder build up, because that can very much be the case. But I'm just going to press it down slightly and then go back along here to get a nice neat edge, just because there's no scenery to blend into. Because just as a reminder, this is a board that I will have on display with the ballast that shows, so that people can see the differences between the gauges. So I'll now come along and just brush off here as well, just to reveal the sleepers down this side. Just a quick touch up down through the middle as well. Probably gonna have to use my left hand just to get the angle correct. And as you can probably see from the cack-handedness right now, I am very much right-handed. Just because I am a little more cack-handed, I'm probably going to go with a slightly stiffer brush just to get that line there. Yeah, there we go. Right, so there we go. That's the end gauge prepared, and I now want to take the opportunity to fix that in place. Now, one of the things I am cautious of with ballast that is so fine is normally I would spray IPA over the top, but I'm not sure whether spraying it might dislodge some of that ballast that I've put in quite neatly there. So yeah, I don't know whether that's going to be the right approach here. So I'm just finding my IPA. And why is it whenever I need something whilst recording, it's not where I think it is? Oh, there it is. So the approach I'm going to take here is to use pipettes. So I've got some IPA here. You can get yourself a nice spray bottle of IPA from RAILstuff.com. And I will use a pipette, and I will drop the IPA directly onto the ballast. Oops, might have got a little bit carried away there. But that's fine. You want the IPA to soak all the way through. Now, for those of you who don't know, the reason you use IPA here is it soaks down through the ballast, and it means that when you apply the glue, it will soak all the way down through the ballast. So next thing I do is get some plain PVA. Now, if you don't want to muck around with mixing up your own glues and things like that, then I would highly recommend Deluxe Materials Ballast Bond, or another favourite is the Deluxe Materials Ballast Magic. So Ballast Magic is a dry powder that you mix in with the dry ballast before you lay it, and then once you've put it in place, you then just spray over with water, and it dries and fixes it in place. It's brilliant stuff. Even better, if you then want to remove the ballast at any point, spray it over with warm water, and it just lifts up. So it's very, very good. But it is a little bit more expensive. Definitely the 50-50 water and PVA approach is the cheapest way to lay your ballast, but not all of us just want the cheap way. Some of us want the simple way, right? So there are options there for you. All of that, Ballast Bond, Ballast Magic, IPA, all available at RAILstuff.com. Now, I don't think that's quite 50-50, so I'm going to need a little bit more PVA in there. I'm not showing you what I'm doing right now because all I'm doing is mixing PVA and water. And I'm guessing the majority of you can manage that. There we are. So we've got some PVA and water mixed up, just like that. And then I'm going to use a different pipette to apply that. Now, some of the IPA is actually dried there, so I probably should have gone to the glue much faster than I did after putting the IPA down, because IPA does evaporate very quickly. So I've just put some more IPA down, and let's just put the glue on nice and quickly. Oops, got some ballast on the tip of my pipette, so to speak. Ooh, misses and all that. Now I've put a lot on there, but that's fine because I want it all to stay in place, and we can neaten that up when it dries, because there will be some bits that sort of move and things like that, but that's okay. That's okay at this stage. So now we want to repeat the process, but for TT. That's your TT done in the middle, so let's move on to 00 at the end. And there we have it. 3 sections of ballast laid in 3 different gauges. We'll come back to it once it's dried, neaten up the edges, and then we can have a bit of a closer look at exactly what it looks like. So with the ballast all nicely dried, I'm quite pleased with that. I'll probably just take a little knife and just chip off any loose bits that are sat on top of the sleepers, just because this is going to go on display. But you'll also notice that there's a splodge of something in the bottom corner. That's because, just to finish this off, because you can see where the glue is soaked into the board and everything like that. I also wanted to use some of the true to scale universal ground cover, which is fantastic as a nice sort of earthy look. I'm not going to go and cover this with static grass or anything like that, but there you can see the universal ground cover is great as a sort of universal ground cover, really. So I want to do that. So I experimented with just adding a little bit on there with just some PVA, which works very well. But of course you can see the colour of the board through it quite a bit. So what I'm going to do before I cover the rest of the board is just give it a lick of base paint with this raw umber, very basic acrylic paint, just so that you don't see board through it, but you see, well, more brown through it, really. So let's do that, and then we're ready to apply some universal ground cover. So there we are, we've added a basic ground cover, which is a lovely material. It will dry a little lighter than it is now. If you sort of wondered why I was just throwing it straight onto paint, I wasn't. I mixed some PVA in, some PVA and some water in with the paint, just really to save some time, so I could throw the ground cover straight on it. Now looking for the lid of this paint, and I can't find it anywhere, which is kind of typical Adam way of doing things. I'm sure it'll turn up in a minute. There it is, right behind the pot where I put the paint, which of course makes sense. The only thing I do notice is that it has kind of made things look a little bit ropey in terms of neatness, because it's not blended in the way that we would with a layout. You never just have ground cover and then stark contrast ballast. You're always going to blend it in different ways. So I don't know whether maybe I will add a little bit of static grass on there, or just something to help blend it in. In truth, what I really should have done is painted the base before I did the ballast as well. Just to make the whole thing work together, because actually what you've then got is some of the paint has sort of seeped into the ballast as well, and that is then bothering my eye a little bit. But hey, it's the the overall goal was for people to be able to see the difference between the N, the TT and the 00 in terms of grading the ballast, and this block does do that at least. But I may just have a little fiddle around to see if I can neaten things up a little bit and blend them in a little bit better. But I think what you can see from this is the quality of the materials from True to Scale. So just as a reminder of what we've used here. So for the TT, we've used the TT 120 scale ballast in dark grey. For the ground cover, we've used the universal ground cover. You can also get like a universal trail. There's the Barry Stockyard one, is fantastic to use as well. Then for the 00, we've used the light grey, and then for N, we've used the standard grey. And you'll see that none of these are just a single colour product. They all have nuance and depth to them, which is really nice. I love the pink grey, I love the brown grey, I love the Lanarkshire red as well. I think it looks fantastic. But of course, you know, with all of these, there will, you know, it will look better with some weathering, some blending it in a little bit, like I said. So, you know, there's plenty that can be done to just bring this in even a little bit more, you know, accurate to what it should look like. You know, and you can start to use paints and pigments and other scatter material and things like that to really bring it all to life. But in terms of playing around with the product, that's really done a good job for what I wanted to do. You can grab all of this stuff at rail-stuff.com right now. Any 500 gram bag is £12.49. Any 1 kilogram bag is $14.99. So the 1 kilogram stuff is really, really good value. Not that the 500 gram isn't, but just the 1 kilogram is like, wow, you know, you're getting double for a couple of pound extra. So, you know, it's superb. But go take a look at the range now. There's also a new landing page with a bit of extra explanation at rail-stuff.com/true to scale. And if you want to take a look at it up close, then come see me at the Great Electric Train Show this weekend in Milton Keynes. And then after that, I'll be at the Great British at Gaydon, Alsager, Model Railway Show in Crewe. Then I'll be at the National Festival at the NEC. And then, of course, there'll be the RAILstuff Open Day at the start of December. So why not come and have a look for yourself and pick yourself up a bag or 2 or 20 whilst you're there. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. We will be back very, very soon with £100 layout jobs because time is marching on towards that December deadline. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.